Hi, I'm Megan.
And I'm Alex.
And this is the Earth Inspired Podcast.
Today we're interviewing Max Hart, the Director of Agricultural Education at Calleva Outdoors and our mentor for our high school senior project.
Can you explain what you do at Calleva?
Yeah, so Calleva is a outdoor education nonprofit, and we have a lot of schools and campers come out depending on the season. And I'm lucky enough to be able to run our agricultural education program. So that means that I build the farm up and I have like different things that I produce. And then through doing that, school programs come out and they learn about what I'm doing and about how agriculture is directly linked to the environment.
What kind of ages do you work with?
Yeah, so it's mostly like kids in middle school, elementary school, and high school. But just recently, within the past couple of years, we started a preschool program called Cubs, and it's kids that are 3 years old until 7. And then every year I also have college interns that come out, and it's not necessarily as education based as much as it is experiential based for them because it's a different process at that age.
How did you get into doing this job?
So the job specifically at Calleva, I had been working at Calleva for a number of years as like a rafting instructor, general character. And then I moved away to Australia and I was working in agriculture and working with these fancy chefs, and I just clicked, I was like, I want to be at Calleva forever and I love doing this. And then I applied for the job as it opened up.
Alex, do you want to explain how we met Max?
Yeah. So me and Megan actually did a project senior year of high school where we were helping to design an aquaponics system for Calleva, and Max was our mentor for that. And so he helped us a lot with building the actual greenhouse that the aquaponics system was going to be in, and then he also helped guide us on just like the fundamentals of aquaponics. So Max, do you actually want to go into aquaponics?
Yeah, absolutely. So aquaponics is a huge thing in sustainable agriculture because not only are you reducing the amount of chemical fertilizers that you're putting into water systems or soil systems, but you're also producing two different products, because aquaponics as opposed to hydroponics is when you grow fish and the plants with the poo from the fish. And so, you don't have to worry about evaporation and groundwater being pulled out of it because it's all in a closed system. And that really sparks an interest in my mind because of urban agriculture and how we're going to bring fresh nutrient sources to people that maybe don't have a farm or any acreage. And it's a really, really cool forefront of what food production can do on an individual level and then also on a mass level.
I remember when we were helping to build it, you mentioned that we were going to use it for education purposes for the students. Do you do that now?
Yeah, so based off of our research and our designs and stuff, I've built a functioning one in the greenhouse. And right now I haven't put, I guess it's not fully functioning because I haven't put all the fish inside of it, but I'm running the tests and testing the water, and then we're going to have kids from our programs catch crawfish for the swirl filter, and then we're going to have them catch 1 or 2 catfish from our pond, just to have those going around in there. And they're really hardy fish, and it's what we have on the farm. And it's working really well. I'm propagating all of my herbs right now, a ton of rosemary, and started a bunch of different seeds, and I was heating it with the compost heater. So it's all kind of clicking. It's cool.
I know you showed us around the farm a lot when we were there, and there was a lot of other sustainable practices you did. Can you tell us a little bit about some of them?
Yeah, so everything. I'm a trash gardener. So I take things that are normally wasted, and then I try to take it and apply it however I can. And so every year as I'm learning and I'm growing, and I have more people like you come and give me cool ideas and talk about theories, then I'm always doing different things. But for starts, we do a rainwater collection off of our large barn, and then that goes into a 7,000 gallon cistern that used to be a septic tank that's underneath the goats, and then that's what I use to water all the plants and to give water to certain animals. And then we also have a 80-year-old greenhouse that is glass, and I have a giant compost pile behind it, and that's how I heat it over the winter. And so it doesn't fully heat it that I can grow tomatoes and cucumbers, but it allows me to be able to start seeds earlier for spring and keep them going more in fall. And then also it's a really fun thing to show kids because you can also see how the worms are going through this compost heater because I have a clear wall that it backs up to, and so I can talk to kids about how the compost system works and how there's like different levels of soil, and we can see like what different invertebrates and fungi that are living in it. And then I do no dig no till gardening, and I do high intensity rotational grazing with all my animals. So we have a biodiverse like topsoil layer, and so it accumulates a lot more. So then we have less runoff and less erosion. We also like, since we raise certain animals like pigs and cows that are super water dependent, we have mostly natural tributaries that they're getting their water from, and all of our groundwater is a surplus. And so even with that, we're reducing all of our herd sizes and keeping it as minimal as possible. But the amount of biodiversity that they bring to the farm is just like, that was a chef's kiss.
So you said you spent a year in Australia. Can you tell us what you did there?
Yeah, so I spent a year and like 9 months in Australia. I was spending a lot of time at the university, James Cook University. My friend that I was there with was getting a master's degree in soil science, and I was working at this fancy restaurant, and I was constantly going out on farms and doing research projects with the person I was there with, and I just was like amazed by that, and then amazed by the amount of fresh produce that the chef that I was working with was going to the market every morning and picking up, before he worked 12 hours in the kitchen, and so then I was working then as a barista for him, and I was like, Nick, this is awesome, but like, don't you know the farmer that you're getting this from at the market every day? Like, why don't you just, set up a communications with this guy? And then eventually that turned into how it is, and just like that delicious food and produce of like the tropical produce that they were getting was just like, I was like very, very, very interested in all of that. And then also I was working on mango and lime farms, and I'll tell you what, working on a mango farm is amazing. I mean, it's brutally hot, and it's like you're getting like, there's like sap on mango, so you get all covered in stuff, and like, kangaroos will come and try to steal the mangoes, and you gotta scare them off, but there's no guns out there, so like, they're like, oh, we're gonna shoot it, and I'm like, oh, like, we're gonna shoot it, and like, we shouldn't shoot it, and then they just have these little air guns that don't even shoot anything, it just makes a big noise, and so, that was really amazing, and learning about like pruning and like grafting, because they grafted all their lime trees onto lemon roots because the lemons grew better in that soil, and so then I would spend hours a day working on grafting, and then hours after that working on harvesting and washing, and really getting into the industrial side of agriculture.
Outside of obviously going to Australia, what inspired you to do all those sustainable practices at Calleva?
I've always been like super like crunchy granola, like out in the wilderness, and like loving what nature has to offer, like going from like, zoology to microbiology, like all that stuff since I was a little kid has always been really interesting, and I think with like the climate crisis becoming like super prominent when I was in high school, I graduated in 2012, and so there was a lot of the first debates about what we can do to combat this, like as a whole as a country, and I realized that the only way that I can really contribute is by doing things. And I was spending a lot of time in high school at my grandparents' house. My grandma was like a bird watcher, and she had a garden and lived around a bunch of farms, and it's like, this is a very practical way to like improve a community, by growing food and choosing the ways that's going to benefit the earth and the people, instead of, because like volume is always a big thing, and I'm a big proponent on like community, like you don't need to be selling to all of Maryland, you need to be selling to Poolsville and making sure that Poolsville has what they need, like with nutrients from the vegetables, because we're not gonna pick it and then let it sit for 2 months and then bring it somewhere, like having fresh produce right there. And then also like you look at agriculture stats, and like most of the carbon emissions that come from agriculture are from shipping too, so like we have like all these avocados, and we have like all this carbon dioxide that's being put out just because Tina wants avocado toast every morning. And it's like, you're allowed to want avocado toast, but also, how can we find ways to enjoy what we're eating without having to ship things all over the place?
One thing that a lot of people don't take into consideration are those kind of hidden costs of transportation and even just of materials, like of manufacturing. I think it's something that a lot of people don't consider, and I feel like we absolutely should.
In my sustainability class right now, we're actually doing a research paper about like the sources and destinations of one object. And it's a 2,000-word paper, and at first I thought I wouldn't have enough to write about, but like now I'm like, I actually like I'm not gonna be able to write about as much as I like could. But it's like looking into like the raw materials and like the transportation and like the impacts of that on the environment has been like a lot. What was your favorite memory or place growing up to go outdoors?
Ooh. Yeah, so I grew up in Frederick, Maryland, and Frederick's got like all these amazing places like Gambrel State Park, which is where it's just like a bunch of trees and it's got a lot of different topography. And I really loved it out there, and I did this like Quaker nature camp out there when I was a little kid, and I really, really loved that. Like we would forage and do all that sort of fun stuff. But I would probably say though, where my grandparents lived in New Jersey, like it was an amazing idealist, kind of place where there was like you could go and do anything because it's out in the country, like near Princeton or like Lambertville, and you could just like run around and explore and have a good time.
Do you have any specific stories that really stand out in your memory, either at your grandparents or at the camps that you went to?
Yeah, oh my gosh. So when I was, I don't know, I'd probably be like 15, I was staying at my grandparents' house for, I don't know, like a month in the summer, and I was doing like all their chores, and then my grandpa showed me this compost pile because it had a bunch of snakes that lived in it, and I was like, yeah, this is sweet, and then as we were digging for snakes, I started to realize, it just kind of all like clicked to me. I was like, wait, all this stuff turns into like soil, like what is this? And then like snakes live in here, and like what are the snakes eating? Oh, the snakes are eating mice, and it's like, oh, we don't have any mice in the house because we have this compost pile, and then these mice are getting eaten by these snakes, and it was a big system, and then I would also work on the neighbor's farm, and they had all these horses, and I would muck all this stuff, and I was like, what do you do with all this poop? And they're like, oh, we turn it into soil and we grow vegetables for our family because we have no money, and so like we live so far away from the grocery store that we can't afford to drive there once a week, like we have to spend all of our money on fuel for the tractors for these horses because we got to cut hay, and that's because they boarded horses, and then we just grow our own vegetables, and it's like, oh nice, man. Like I couldn't imagine needing some food, like needing to grow your own food to have fresh food, and that was a really impactful time, just to see how these people who I kind of looked down on, I was like, oh, you guys are gross, you have like these teeth that are hurt, but it's like, well, because they don't have the proper essentials to operate in a modern society, so they create their own. And I think that's really commendable. I think that's really cool.
Are there any values that you learned growing up that you try and instill on the students that you work with?
Yeah, so my dad was is a teacher, and he's like this amazing like guru, but like doesn't try to be, he's just like really, really understanding and listens and makes kids feel heard and makes kids feel like their like creative ideas matter, and that like testing and that sort of stuff isn't really like a value that you need to like worry about. It's all about comprehension and understanding and feeling uplifted by adults as opposed to constantly feeling put down. So I always try to, no matter what age group I'm working with, I try to take kids' opinions and, go through, okay, this is a good idea because of this. This might maybe not be a great idea because of this, but I really like keep them coming, and I think that's really important.
How do you hope these experiences like shape your students' view of nature?
Well, I just hope that kids that come through the farm don't think of like being an environmentalist as like all or nothing or being one type of way, because I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan, right? And that's definitely the best way to be an environmentalist. Like if we're going off of through the system of capitalism, how can we prevent carbon being wasted through the production of animals, right? But I'm not a vegan or a vegetarian because I raise animals, and I feel like it's hard for me to not partake in eating those because of an instinctual thing within me, and so like being able to like carve your own way through life and understand that like if you know how you can cut down or how you can contribute instead of just consume to the nutrient cycle, to agriculture, to your own health through buying local produce or doing that sort of stuff, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. like you can start slow. You know, you can get half your stuff from the grocery store and then half your stuff from a farmer's market, or, you know, volunteer time, or, you know, just like change your perception of what caring about the environment is.
So this isn't as much related to the environment, but are there any memories working with us that you remember and you really enjoyed?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, so like having you guys like have to mess with plumbing and like figure out like from zero, like, because I would kind of just give you guys like a task and I'd be like, do it, you know, and then leave and then come back and then it would be done, and it was in a way that was like not the way that I would do it, but it would work, you know, and maybe leak a little bit, but like, you know, it was cool. It was cool because you guys kind of took it on the chin and were like, okay, like let's make this and and figure it out, and I think that helped me with understanding it, because you guys did your independent research and were like, like, yeah, we're gonna do this, and I'm like, thank God.
I think one of my favorite memories was when you gave us the keys to the car to get in, like the really broken down truck. And we had to go to the junkyard and pick up the bathtub. And then we were driving down like this huge hill, and I was like really afraid that the bathtub was gonna somehow fall out of the truck or something. And then also at the bottom of the hill there was like this really sharp turn that we had to go around. And it took me like a 5-point turn to get around it in the truck. And it was just really funny.
At least a 5-point turn.
Yeah.
Maybe 10.
Minimum.
Also, us trying to start the truck was also an issue.
Because you had to press the wires.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, that thing was crazy. It's still driving around on the farm.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah, Marlon's driving it. It's funny.
That actually reminded me, talking about the bathtub, I don't think we emphasized enough how much of the projects are reused. And literally we would just go to the junkyard, find parts that otherwise would have just sat there, and put it to use, in our case, for the hydroponic system.
Yeah, especially in prototypes, you know, like if we're, like none of us knew what we were doing, you know, but it was an interesting idea, and it's like, you know, how does the theory work, you know, and then we were able to kind of put it into use. And, you know, be able to take tests from our water to be like, okay, like if the water's not get, like it's not getting that much oxygen because we don't have a air stone. Okay, like we need an air stone, and then it's like, how do we, like, where are those balances, right? And then that's before we spend any money on anything, you know. And something funny actually about that bathtub is I used it this year. So that same one, I like brought it into the greenhouse because the compost heater. So in the first couple months that it was like working. It was at like an average like 130 degrees, and so I had it in this little bucket, you know, to preserve all the heat. So, you know, like the water would go through and heat it up, and then I was like, oh, this is super warm. So then I filled up the bathtub, and then I sat in the bathtub, and I was like, yeah, like this is amazing. It was like it was like a jacuzzi. Yeah, it was very wasteful though. Like all the water fell everywhere. It was just leaking, but worth it, you know.
How's Diesel doing?
Is
Diesel here?
No, Diesel's at home right now. She's like an angsty teenager recently. She like doesn't want to get out of bed. So Diesel's my little pit bull, and she has been like finding bones in like on the farm and then burying them all over the garden. And that's a new thing, you know. I think that's awesome. But she's also been burying eggs, and so I think that this dog understands how much our soil needs more phosphorus. You know, it's just like really, really cool. You know, she's putting bone meal in the soil for me. She's putting eggshell, you know, and eggs. That's a nitrogen source. So she's a little farmer dog, man. She gets it. She definitely gets it.
I remember I still have a picture of like mid link of like Diesel's tongue just like shooting at Megan.
Oh yeah, I saw that too. It's really funny.
Oh, she's so gross. I'm sorry that she's traumatized you guys.
No, it's so
No,
funny.
Diesel was so cute.
That was like one of the highlights of the experience for sure.
Yeah, and I'd just gotten her at that point, you know.
Mm-hmm. And she was like really well behaved for like a puppy, like especially like a pit bull puppy, like a really energetic dog.
Yeah.
She was super well behaved.
And a rescue, you know, like you'd think that she'd be like, oh, let me get into some trouble, but she was like, I'm on the farm, dog. Like, yeah, let's go wherever you gotta go. Yeah, and actually, so with Britain's project, because you guys are kind of working in parallel with Britain and Juliana, I think. I don't know if you finished the project. I know Britain definitely didn't, but I have finished the automation that they were starting. So like we use an Arduino, which is like a little microcontroller, to like take soil moisture readings in the greenhouse, and then also to take temperature and humidity readings. And when the temperature reaches a certain point, I have this air compressor that operates these pistons that open the original windows from the greenhouse. And so at 80 degrees, it opens the windows all the way. And then at 90 degrees, it turns on the big fan. And then when the soil moisture is below 50%, it turns on the drip lines with a little solenoid for 30 seconds every 2 minutes until it's at 75%. And that's been a really cool like teaching tool for kids too, because like you can actually see like how these open source, microcontrollers are super cheap and still super effective. And so if you ever want to get into, home automation or automating a greenhouse or like robotics or, like self-driving cars, you can there's also a way to get into that through the farm. If that, because like some people are farm nerds, some people are computer nerds, and I'm lucky enough to be a little bit of both. And then this kind of opens up another door to people that wouldn't normally want to be in agriculture, because you can program. I'm like right now I'm also programming one for Brokeback, and we just got this like educational beehive that's like clear on both sides, and I'm making one that takes a humidity and temperature reading on the inside, and then another one that counts the amount of bees that are coming in and out on average every hour. And so we can then like see the growth of the hive, we can see like the rate of growth, we can make sure that all the things are cheesy beesy, and then it all goes to an app, which is really cool. And Britain helped, spark that flame. And that's another thing, like having creative young people come through and be like, oh, like you're kind of an idiot for doing this, like how about we do this, or and I think that's really awesome that you guys are doing this and that you guys have continued to do it. And I appreciate you guys asking me to come on.
I was curious. Can you talk a little bit more about how working with the young people has influenced you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so it's definitely made me happy that I don't have kids myself because I really, really enjoy every day, because every day I'm working with, students from 3 years old till, 20, 21 years old, and I really value all that time that I do get to spend because I'm constantly reminded that people learn differently and that people react to certain things differently, and that we need to be sensitive for a lot of different reasons to a lot of different things, and I don't know if I'm naturally the most sensitive, but, talking to someone about animals that I really love that we eat, and then if seeing people get upset about that, it makes me upset too, and so then, it's gotten me really good at being able to kind of like soften blows and understand that things that might be commonplace for me are incredibly different and hard to understand for other people, and like kids say the darndest things, like every day, like, kids will tell me that they look like Beyonce or, and stuff like that. And it's like, what? I'm glad you guys are out here on the farm and not like on your Instagram, and hanging out. But then I also get hip to all the trends on Instagram. So it really is cool, like I feel like I'm learning as much as I'm teaching from the kids.
I think it really is important to work with people from such a diverse group, because even in our program in DCC, that's the honors program that is the reason that we're doing this project. There's so many different people, and you learn like from all different backgrounds, and you learn so much that I don't think it's even possible to learn on your own. And I think that also goes to backgrounds as far as like in your case, like if you're learning about farming from an early age, whereas we had no clue going into it, just like our interactions with you and on the farm taught us so much about that.
Just by being out there.
Mm-hmm. Being outside, especially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like bringing kids, since we're a nonprofit too, we bring a lot of people that aren't normally able to come out. Like we used to do a program called College Success, and we had like 300 kids from DC and Baltimore out and doing stuff, and it wasn't necessarily like, because it was just 2 days, we'd do like ropes course stuff and hang out. But having them realize it's like, oh, like this is totally okay. Like the outdoors is can be fun, and like it's like, if your first experience with a dog is the dog barks at you and jumps, you're gonna be like, oh man, that dog's kind of weird. But then if you come out to Calleva and everyone's being goofy and you see these beautiful animals and garden and you see these people cooking in the kitchen and smiles all around, then you're going to be like, oh, like actually the outdoors is a pretty cool place. We just have to be responsible outdoors or take initiative in a way.
I think the Calleva Farm is really cool because you can buy the produce at the store, right? Mm-hmm. And also they do those like farm to table dinners, and those also seem really cool, where like all the food there like comes from the farm or like comes from a like local place. right?
Yeah, so I try to grow as much as I can. It's just me, and the past couple of years I haven't had any interns, so it is hard to keep that production rate up. But I'm like if half of the food is coming from us, then I'm like so stoked to be able to support 1 Acre Farm, which is like right down the road, and we can buy like if I don't have enough tomatoes, and we can buy tomato anything that we need from them, because they are the like real deal, like amazing farmers, and like Moon Valley Farm in Frederick, like they're amazing. But like all of it kind of stems from like we had too much. Like we had like leftover brick and mortar, so we built a pizza oven too, right? And then we do pizza night. Like last year we did it every Friday and Saturday. This year we're gonna do it just on Saturdays, but that brought in like so much revenue from people coming out, and the farm had never really been able to like make money. Like luckily we work for a nonprofit, so we're able to now to kind of dip into those funds. But like having this like leftover material, building a pizza oven, and then we have this amazing chef that bakes bread and makes the pizza dough and the tomato sauce, and he can take anything that I'm producing and turn it into something that's delicious. And but with using the things that we have, like wood-fired pizza ovens, and because we have tons of wood, so we can do, we really do on all levels, utilize all the stuff that we have.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool, especially when we were doing our project, how much we could reuse things that were on the farm. A lot of the like PVC pipes and stuff like that we thought we would have to buy originally, we would just like go into random buildings and find like random things that we could use, and that was really cool.
Yeah.
That reminds me of, I don't know if you're laughing because you're thinking of this, but the pottery that we smashed.
I use that too. I use that for the first, because I didn't want to buy coco coir, which is this like fibrous stuff, so I like use that for the first trial of growing stuff in the hydroponic system that's in the greenhouse now, and it worked really well. I mean, it made the water all dirty, and like it like would empty out eventually. But yeah, I might still use that though on the bottom of the fish tank.
I think it was probably my favorite day of our project. We just got a bunch of old like flower pots and all that. Then we got hammers and we just smashed them. We play like baseball with it. Like,
that's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's porous, instead of buying those clay balls, you can buy you can just break already broken terracotta pots. I thought it was smart. I don't know if it works, but I think, like the theory is there.
Yeah. At least we could try, and it was fun.
That was like a stress reliever. Like we were like, I guess. But I did use it for a little while.
Especially as high school students, I feel like it was very good to have that stress relief, very cathartic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of that on the farm. Like the glass greenhouse, sometimes like you'll be pulling something down and then it like shatters and you're like, ah. That was scary, but kind of felt nice, like.
And the greenhouse was also something that you didn't just build it from scratch. Like it was something that you like restored.
Yeah, so it's funny. So yeah, like I said, I grew up in Frederick, and I grew up on North Market Street, and the greenhouse that we picked up is a block away from the house that I grew up in, and I actually bought my prime corsages there. It was called Sharp's Flowers, and it was this beautiful glass greenhouse. And honestly, yeah, it definitely played a part in my interest in this sort of stuff, because it was like this beautiful green space in the middle of Frederick City. And so then my like first year as the farmer at Calleva, we used to have this 100-foot plastic hoop house. And then Nick Markoff, one of the owners, was like, hey, like there's this glass greenhouse and all these tables in Frederick. Would you want to pick it up? And I was like, oh, like send me where it is, and maybe I know it. And it was Sharp's Flowers, and so I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, that would be so cool if we were able to go and take that down. And it took a whole summer for us to take it down, with like 12 kids every day going and pulling the glass off and taking, because it's 80-year-old wood, 80-year-old glass, 80-year-old metal, all this stuff is from the 40s or 30s. And then we took, once it got all back, it took me 2 years to refurbish all this stuff. So I went through and I rerouted like the drip gutters, and then I repainted them, and then I had to strip that paint because I had a kid just dip it into a bucket, and then it globbed up, and so like all that work had to be redone, and re-scraping all the windows, and then I built it once, and then it wasn't stable enough for my liking, and so then I pulled it down, and then we came up with this design for like wires to pull to keep it stable. And then, so it took a lot of country engineering and thinking and processing to to build it, and a team. It was definitely a team project. And that was pretty cool. I think about how I bought those prom corsages there and didn't even go to that prom. Every day.
Is there anything that you do outside of your job, just like on a daily, that strengthens your connection with nature?
Yeah. So like my favorite thing to do is to take Diesel into like these urban green spaces around my house, because I live in like an urban sprawl sort of place in Frederick. Not super, it's kind of suburbsy, but I like to go out there and just try to see like what I can forage and see what Diesel can find and see what's around, because I've always thought that that's so interesting that you can have these super mushrooms that grow in the middle of a city, because when I lived in Georgetown, I would find lion's mane mushrooms doing the same thing with Diesel. I'd be walking through and just see these like monster lion's manes, and sometimes like I've never found a morel, but like I've heard people finding them all around where I live now, and I would say that foraging is probably my like favorite thing to do, to like just kind of like forget about the world, like just be like, like where are these little mushrooms, like any reishi out here, like no, okay, and then Diesel poops and I go home.
Thank you so much for doing this interview with us.
Yeah, you guys for having me.